the region. Port Canaveral, huge for some of the cruise lines, just in terms of getting back on track. I believe no cruises are going out through the end of today. But have you heard anything else in terms of getting economic activity back online?
No. No, well, we're Gulf Coast, so our concern has been Port Tampa Bay, which is the largest port in the state by physical size. They account for about a third of all cargo in and out of Florida. So we're going to be watching to see what their recovery is like. The president spent the night on an icebreaker watching the emergency operation. So we'll be watching for cruise-related issues in and out of there. I got to say, Sarah, the airlines and the cruise lines have been they've played this pretty smart. Norwegian brought some boats home early and let passengers off. American tried to get some flights out as of 5 o'clock tonight before Miami International said no dice. But one thing about this storm, we've lacked a big PR disaster from a lot of the travel and leisure companies.
Yeah, I mean, tourism is so important, as you know, Carl, to this economy. Florida's fourth biggest economy in the country. I think tourism is their #1 industry. Beyond the cruises, you've got the theme parks, which also, I believe, remain closed. Through any word on that? SeaWorld, Universal Studios, Walt Disney World.
Yep.
I mean, this is a major source of job creation and tourism dollars. I guess it's not high season, but still important.
Yeah. We just got word from Disney World. Of course, they've only closed, I think, 6 times in their 40-plus year history. They never lost power, but they did sustain some high winds. And Disney World will remain closed today. And I believe Universal, that of our parent company, will remain closed today as well. Let's get to Contessa Brewer, guys, and see what's happening on the Atlantic side. Contessa's in Fort Lauderdale. Hey, Contessa.
Yeah. Actually, Carl, now I've moved using some of our precious gas resources down to Miami. We're in the Brickell neighborhood where some 35,000 people live in this financial capital of Miami, to say nothing of the big name businesses that are here. And up and down the streets, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, Deloitte employees who come to check out the damage are likely to see downed trees and spotty service with the spotlights. And then I want to show you one of the big towers under construction, a very common sight in Miami. This is the Panorama Tower, and we got reports during the storm that construction debris was flying off of that tower and nearly hitting the people below. Look at this, a huge plate glass window or door shattering on the ground below. And here's the Ocean Bank that also has had some damage to its windows over here. And most notably on this street, and the thing that the passersby keep coming to see, a big tree that has been uprooted and overturned. So this is part of the obstacle to getting Miami back to business. There was a big storm surge along Brickell Avenue, so there is water damage in some of these buildings. That will all have to be assessed before the buildings can open up and reopen for business. But definitely, we've already talked to employees who are eager to get back to work, and the place is busy. It is hopping with sightseers down here trying to get a look at the damage Irma caused, Carl.
Also checked and they...
South to Miami, what were the roads like?
Sarah, I'll send it back to you. Yeah. Listen, I-95 was completely clear, lots of traffic, with the exception of a northbound lane that had some flooding, and people were just whizzing right into it, causing water to splash everywhere. And the real danger, let me show you, turn you around once again. So we're at this intersection of Brickell and Southeast 10th Street. This intersection has a working stoplight, but many of the intersections don't. In some places, there are police officers who then stop people from driving through and making left-hand turns. In other places, it's a free-for-all. Watch out.
Contessa, thank you for that report and for showing us the scene there in Miami this morning. Contessa Brewer. For more, we are joined now by Rich Serino, former FEMA Deputy Administrator. Rich, thank you so much for coming on.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
So the word this morning appears to be some relief that the worst of the fears and the forecast didn't come to fruition in Florida, but clearly there's extensive property damage and localized damage all over the state. How would you assess the situation this morning?
From what we've been able to see, there's still actually some search and rescue going on in the northern part of the states. That's where the priorities are, is to take care of the search and rescue in the waters that are up there. But as you see, southern areas, some of the areas now, still without power, and that's going to be the main concern, is the people that don't have power. 6 million people and hearing that it's not going to be days, some cases it may be weeks in certain areas before people get power back. So that's going to be a main concern. Also for the people that are in shelters. Well, there's a lot of damage to some of the infrastructure from what we're hearing and understanding. It's not as simple as just, putting a few wires back up. Some of the reports that I've heard from some of the electric officials is that, in fact, there has been significant damage. In fact, maybe one of the largest rebuilds of an electrical system that they've ever had.
Clearly, federal funds are going to be put to the test again after Hurricane Harvey. But does the wind damage here versus some of the extreme flooding we saw in Houston put more of the burden on the insurers and the reinsurers versus the federal government?
Yes, the wind, depending if the people have insurance, some people have no insurance at all, and that's where they can call FEMA for help at the 1-800-621-FEMA or disasterassistance.gov. They can get help there if they have no insurance, but people who have insurance hopefully are going to be covered by that. So the first thing they should do is contact their insurers as soon as they're able to. But right now, people still need to stay in. It's still, areas are unsafe. There's down lines, power lines. So people have to be careful. Let the crews get in once the winds die down a bit, to let the trucks get in to take care of getting the power back on. Also for the people that need to get out and to start to clear the debris away so people can have access around as well.
Yeah, and just in terms of that cost and the bill, the latest measure by Congress approved, along with raising the debt ceiling and preventing a government shutdown, did provide about $15.25 billion for disaster relief. Between what you've seen at Harvey in Texas and what you're seeing now in Florida, making its way up to Georgia, is that going to be enough?
That's going to be enough for the short term, for the initial search and rescues, for the initial to get people back on their feet initially. But for the long term, it's going to be more than that. For example, with Sandy, it was $60 billion just for Sandy. Never mind, this is Irma and the top of Harvey. It's going to be much more than that when we move forward. I've heard estimates for just Irma is in the $20 to $40 billion range, and Harvey was in the similar range as well. So it's going to be a long increase just in the federal parts to rebuild part of the disaster relief fund, for the public assistance to help build the roads, etc.
You talked before about some of the damage to the power lines and the utility infrastructure. What are you hearing about property damage? We know that more than 6 million people were evacuated. Hundreds of shelters opened up. Are they going to be able to get back to their homes? And are their homes in decent enough shape to come back to?
Well, it's one of the things you're concerned about, and people get concerned about, is the fact that the areas we haven't heard anything from, that they have no communications. No communications does not mean it's good. In fact, sometimes that can be bad, not knowing what's going on. For people getting back into their homes, each local city and each local county are going to have to determine when it's safe to go back in that community, because each community is going to be different, the damage that they've had on how quickly they can get back. But one thing that for the people who are in the shelters, I know the governor put out a call and got a lot of volunteers. 9/11 today, we have to remember, is also a day of service. It's a day that people can go around and helping each other. Over a period of time, a lot of people that got into this line of work, young folks, got in because of what happened on 9/11. So I think it's important for us to realize a day of service, that you can do things. The governor asked for people to donate blood yesterday. In addition to donating blood, people should donate cash as well to help the people get back on their feet.
We will leave it on that nice note. Rich, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Rich Serino, the former FEMA Deputy Administrator. When we come back, we are just one day away from CNBC's Delivering Alpha conference. We'll take a look at how the best investor ideas are performing 1 year later. And taking a quick look at stocks at this hour, we've got a pretty broad-based rally going on. Nearly 1% gains for the S&P and the Dow. The NASDAQ up 1.2%, and that is good enough to make up all of last week's losses. Walk on the Street. We'll be right back.